Good morning, people. This your girl Keisha C, and you're currently tuning in to Getting Through. So, this morning, I kind of wanted to talk about an experience that I've been kind of going through and actually having to actually get used to, finding adjustment, kind of set some boundaries, not only for myself, but like for my peace and my sanity. So, like I always talked about, as everybody knows, like I have two kids, and unfortunately, I have two baby daddies, and it has been quite the challenge for me with my youngest son. And the only reason why I say it's a challenge because, for one, my oldest, me and his dad really, have always kind of been on a mutual ground. My oldest has always stayed with me full time. We never really had any issues. We kind of handled our responsibility as adults, as parents, and we kind of made our decisions for ourselves. And it's been a bit of a challenge with my youngest only because there's so many moving parts. So many people have their opinion. Everybody got something to say. And not so much on, my side, but on his dad's side. And for me, it's been a bit of a challenge because I've allowed that situation to kind of like disturb my peace, allow me to really, find a little hate. If I had to use a word for people, for the situation, even for his dad, like, with me, I'm always be honest on my YouTube channel. I don't really sugarcoat anything. I don't really care about how anybody feels about me being true and blunt about my experiences and how I feel about them. But if I must be honest, it had really put me in a really bad space on, that whole situation, the whole family, like, even allow me to kind of step out of character. And the reason why I'm doing the YouTube channel today based off the topic is because I had to set some boundaries for myself so I can allow God to still be able to use me in the moment, even when the circumstances aren't what I'm used to, or when it seems like the devil is really trying to seek in. And I say that because I really had to take a moment and give myself a pep talk. Like I really had to really pull myself outside of my flesh and outside of the world and just really be like, okay, Keisha, I need you to realize that this is a distraction. I need you to realize the promises and what God says he has for you. And I need you to respond in a sense of me, not you. Like, step out of you for a moment, take you away from the situation, and every response that you have, respond in a godly way. Now, I understand it's hard, and like for my ladies and my males, because it happens to both, who deal with baby daddy, baby mama drama, like it can be challenging, especially when you know the type of person you are. Like when you're genuine, you come from a good place, you mean well, and of course you want what's best for your kids. You put yourself, when someone is testing you or when someone puts you in a predicament to feel like you have to defend yourself, your character, as well as your child, it can be a bit challenging and it can be hard. So I just want to talk about how we need to focus on, finding our peace in the midst of the storm, when it seems like really crazy and really chaotic, how we have to sometimes move away for a moment, take a deep breath and kind of analyze, okay, so let me see what's going on and let me find a different perspective and a bit different mindset and a different approach so that the circumstance itself won't get to me. So for me, it took me about 2 months, and I'm not gonna lie, it took me about 2 months, like I've had to call the police to get my child. I've had to literally have a tug of war, over my child, somebody I carried for 9 months, somebody that I literally will do anything for, all because of Like, I don't even know, because I can't even speak on it, because it's not that, I don't know why. Because I feel like anybody who is happy and content with their life, anybody who has moved on, anybody who has, purpose, who is in a good place, won't cause so much confusion, won't cause so much, turmoil or headache. So I can only speak on my part, and I just feel like that situation really had me to be like, okay, look, Keisha, you know that this is what they're going to do. So find yourself to be 2 steps ahead. Find yourself to not respond to what they say on social media, because, I've been bashed on social media, and everybody who knows me knows I'm a good mom. Everybody who knows me knows that I take care of myself. I keep my kids up. But like, I've been bashed on social media. I have even been disrespected to my face by my youngest son dad. Like, called me all kind of names, have literally like really just, and I wanted to respond so bad. Like, I wanted to be just as bad by, putting his business out there, talking about him, really, speaking truth. But I feel like, what is that gonna gain me? Nothing. So it took me some time. I set aside and I really prayed about it. And I was like, God, what are you trying to tell me in this? Because I feel like in anything that we're faced with, in anything that we're challenged with, God has a way of wanting us to learn something in that. He wants us to be open-minded about the situation. And even though it may seem hard and challenging for us, he always wants us to respond in a God-like manner. So I really had to, bring myself back, because I literally hated this nigga. And I will say that, like, I hated him. Like, I had all kind of negative thoughts about, like, man, I wish he died. Like, I ain't even got to deal with this. And I realized, like, that wasn't a God, like, because how is that going to be fair to my son, me wishing all this bad stuff on him, and, him, having to grow up without a father. But I just felt like he was bringing so much hell in my life. I'm just like, Lord, if you just remove him, make it so much easier. But then when I think about my child, that allows him to grow up with so many missing parts, and I don't want that for him, no. So I really had to tell myself, like, okay, Keisha, what is it that God is trying to teach you right here? So I learned that in the midst, like, God wants me to have patience, because nothing happens when we want it to, and be slow to respond. Like, and I know we all experience this, where, after somebody peak so long, it's kind of hard to not want to defend yourself. But I've learned that no defense, like, I would only have to defend myself if I felt like I had to prove something. But in the end, I don't have anything to prove. So I really was like, no defense and no pressure. Like, nothing's going to be forced. Like, I'm not going to tell you when you should do anything. I'm not going to tell you how to be a parent. That has to be your responsibility. And we have to learn how to, even though our expectations are, we want the best for our kids, we want the best for any situation, whether it be relationships, friendships, partnerships, we have to understand that we can't force those things. Those things have to come naturally, and it has to be a two-way street. So as much as we want these expectations, we have to, like, take it as far back as what God says, like, live life with no expectations. Like, true enough, as a mother, you want what's best for your child. And realistically, you want, to be able to co-parent with the other parent. But guess what? If that's not what they want, if they are in this place where they're not happy, content, they want it to be a riffraff, you have to take an initiative to say, you know what? Let me step back and let me only play my part. Let me only be the parent that I can be to my kid. And eventually that person's going to come around. Eventually they're going to have a wake-up call. No matter how much we pressure, push nobody's going to do anything until they're ready to. So that was something that I had to do for myself, and I had to set boundaries for myself. I set boundaries by, not allowing to respond based off of what is said. Also setting boundaries to a point of not saying things out of, hurt or out of spite or out of get back. Allow somebody to say whatever, how they feel, whether you agree with it or not, but allow yourself to be the person to not feed into it. So I put peace around my whole situation and I set boundaries. And honestly, it's really been the best thing ever. Like, I don't even dwell in the conversation. I'm kind of like, if you get him, you do. If you don't, you don't. I'm not going to argue with you. I'm not going to fuss with you. I'm not going to communicate for you. I'm going to do my part. And when you're mature enough, you can do your part. And so, honestly, that goes back to, knowing when we're being tempted. Because, like I said, I had to see what God wanted me to learn in this. God has been so faithful, true. He's blessed me tremendously. Like, I honestly can say I don't want for anything at this point, and that is a lot. And for me to have gotten to this point to where I am serving God, I'm serving God's people, I'm loving on God's people, like I'm at a good place in my life, my job is going well, I'm in an amazing relationship, my kids are, doing great. It's like my family is amazing. Like, I'm really not having any issues. And then here comes this. I really had to say, okay, God, what are you trying to tell me? So what I realized is, as we continue to grow in God and we continue to grow in his word, we're always going to be tempted by something because the devil wants us to get distracted. What better way to distract me besides, messing with me when it comes to my kids? Okay, boom. So that's what it was. And I was distracted because all of a sudden, like, this joy that I felt was turning into hate. And this me being not stressed and really just being carefree has turned into my peace has been shaken and stirred, and I just really wasn't in a good place. So I'm like, okay, cool. So I understand what you're saying, and let me set these boundaries for myself so I won't be distracted. And what I did was I took a moment and I finally declared what God said I declared what the situation is going to be, even though it looks like this. And I feel that over time, God is going to continue to bless and mold the situation. True enough, I did have to take some, extra precautions and steps. And sometimes we have to do that because not out of pity or out of spite, but because, like, if we can't get it right, there is systems put in place so we can get it right. And even though I don't want to have to do this, this is what I'm going to have to do. So sometimes we just have to take the initiative to do things the right way, even though we want to kind of respond and act, inappropriately. So I say that to say this. We don't know what to do. So I know a lot of people always say, like, oh, that wouldn't be me or that couldn't be me. Honestly, I used to always say that because I used to be like, I don't do the drama, but we don't know the unknown. So we can't always say what we won't stand for or what we won't tolerate because you don't know how you're going to respond until you are in that situation. Even though that was never my character, I did get to that point. And so me realizing, okay, Keisha, you need to take a step back and, pause for a minute. That's what I did. 2, we have to trust the process and then be open to what God is trying to teach us and what we should be learning in that moment. And we have to set boundaries when it comes to situations so that we won't find ourselves doing things that, is completely out of our character. And we have to take control of our lives. No matter what situation we're faced with, no matter how temptation comes, whether it be to kill, steal, or destroy, we have to take control of knowing that, who my God is, what he has promised me, and knowing how it's going to pass. So we just have to be patient in a moment and always try to be slow to speak and respond. And sometimes the best response, no response is the best response. So yeah, that's what I got today. So, of course, I love the comments. I love the feedback. And I love the transparency that y'all give me and that y'all allow me to have. So, again, I want y'all to continue to tune in to me. And then, of course, shout me out, share your comments or your concerns or whatever. Like, I'm open. I always feel like nobody can use my truth against me. I'm an open book. So it really doesn't bother me with your comments, if it's like, good or bad. So just continue to tune in, continue to support me. And again, it's your girl Keisha C, and you're currently tuning in to Getting Through. Bye.